Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another equipment video. This one's going to be a little bit different, obviously, from the title. And I've been thinking about this one probably longer than the other ones, just because the other ones were kind of obvious, at least I think so. Armor, clothing, weapons, gear, that sort of thing. But I was thinking about this, and in addition to talking about making your worlds unique with different biomes and different technologies and stuff like that, and plants and animals, it got me to thinking, why is it that every single D&D world, or at least every one that I've ever encountered, has the same farm animals, the same livestock, the same, draft animals, things like that? And why don't we see the old canary in the coal mine in the equipment list? I've seen it in a few places, but I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's too, too granular, too nitpicky, killing your players off because they don't have a canary when they're going down. Well, okay, the one thing you can't have because it's too Earth-like versus everything else being damn near a mimeograph of Earth. The old canary, for those of you who don't know, they would take canaries down into the coal mines because if there was a gas leak, natural gases and things like that, they would kill the canary long before they would kill humans because of their little bitty lungs, and they'd carry it around, and if they looked in the cage and the canary was dead, it was time to get the hell out of there because there was probably some sort of, I forget the exact type of gas, but there would be, a gas down there that would just kill you, silent but deadly. Insert your favorite joke there for that one. But then I started thinking about, your pack animals and your farm animals. Why you couldn't make up, a whole bunch of, or at least one, like just one critter that's totally made up, your own creation. Maybe it's a different kind of, riding animal, something, not the giant ostrich or something like that, but just make up something completely different. I use the big giant riding lizards in my Savage Sword game, just a basic, big kind of like a Komodo dragon that would just bite your hand off if it didn't know you, make them a little dangerous, and only the pack handlers could deal with them. Usually with a thwap on the head with a big stout cudgel to keep them in line and that sort of thing. But maybe different kinds of birds, or maybe a completely different kind of food stuff animal, like a cow or a pig or a sheep or a goat, but something totally different. Like maybe it's got blue fur and it looks like a cross between a this and a that, or some such kinds of animals, but. I think you kind of get that with what I've said already. But when it comes to animals as treasure, there are a whole bunch of ways that you could put something in a dungeon or an adventure. Whether it's out in the wild or in an ancient cave or old ruins. Maybe the farm animals left behind by the previous inhabitants. Over hundreds or thousands of years have evolved or migrated or just still live there, and now you could rustle up some new animals and sell that, bring them back to town and sell them, or raise them yourself, or hire some people and buy a little bit of land, and now you've got a side hustle where it's a ranch or something like that of this new animal, and you're the only guy who's got them. To make some side money or something like that, just to bring a little more, just different things to do and experience while there. But then you've got, a lot of times in the monster manuals, it will tell you how the egg of this creature is worth a whole bunch of money if you go back to town and sell it. Well, in my game, Ullman, he came across some dragon turtle eggs, and I told him, those are going to take decades to hatch, and even then you're going to have to hire people to tend them and make sure they're kept a certain temperature and moisture, etc. And he's doing that as a side hustle, and hopefully someday, when they hatch, he'll have 3, 4, 5 baby dragon turtles to raise as his own. Why not? But there were things like cockatrice and pegasi eggs. If you, for some reason manage to come across a couple of those and raise them up, and then, start to breed a herd of pegasi, to sell off to the local, lords, or create your own winged air force, or some such, and other kinds of animals that you could come across that would be worth just as much money in some sort of endeavor like that, or just straight up sell them. But now you've got to carry back to town these very rare and fragile eggs that could be worth a small fortune. I'm also reminded, of course, of the goose that laid the golden eggs, or maybe there's other creatures that are quasi-magical, but not in any, super fantastical, way, like finding a bunch of rock eggs and hatching those. That would be probably, pretty fun and interesting, but also kind of dangerous as hell once they started to reach maturity, eating the handlers and things like that. And then you've got, maybe just, wild horses, or rare snakes that, instead of killing these poisonous snakes, you round them up, you throw them in a bag or something, and you carry them back home and sell them to the alchemist. Now he's got some, pit vipers or cobras or something like that, and, who knows, maybe that's how he makes some of his potions or poisons or cures, using the venom, things like that, instead of just, because it's always like, doesn't it always seem like it's, you got to go get mushrooms or berries or weeds or something, in addition to all the crazy ingredients from, magical monsters, to make these potions and concoctions and things like that. Well, maybe it's a little more mundane, but still, fraught with its own perils. Bringing back a crate full or a barrel full of snakes could easily net you a couple hundred to 500, maybe even 1,000 gold if they all make it back alive and don't kill each other while they're in the barrel. Or maybe it's rare fish, or maybe it's rare birds that are exotic. You come across some peacocks in the wild. Well, you catch those suckers, throw them in a cage, bring them back to town, and the local lord will pay a hefty price to add those to his little playground garden, where he entertains other nobles, and like, oh, check out my peacocks, or something like that, instead of it always, being gems, jewelry, gold, magic items, things like that. Why not, breathe a little life into your adventures with some living creatures? And then there comes the other one. Are you all right, buddy? You sound like you were making a really nasty noise over there. I don't know if you heard that, but that was gross. Fortunately, he was just nothing ended up on the floor or anything like that. Sorry. But speaking of animals, I've always wondered why you couldn't have pets that were a little bit smarter than my boy here. Maybe a talking variety of bird that actually talks and doesn't just mimic, or maybe a completely brand new kind of critter that, while it's not as smart as a human, maybe it's as smart as a little toddler or a little human. That could be fun, having a pet animal that's different, but can also communicate instead of just obeying commands and looking at you weird when it doesn't understand. Things like that. I remember I forget which series it was called, the Pip series maybe. Alan Dean Foster had that little pseudo dragon that the one character had that wasn't magical or anything like that. It was just a flying lizard, but it was kind of cool. Along those lines, introduce some creatures that aren't necessarily always, hostile or food or dangerous. Just, mundane, but also maybe they have an endearing quality to them. A kind of ferret or mongoose or or rodent that was cool to have around. Maybe intelligent, maybe things like that. Not just something that's slaughtered for its ingredients or its food or things like that to spice up your fantasy world. I'm sure there's an unlimited number of ways you can incorporate animals as part of the loot, part of the treasure, part of the adventure or the goal or the mission, or just a wandering encounter, something brand new. I know I put something in one of my games that was a brand new creature. It was kind of cute and kind of. I'll see if I can find it. I think Mike Dimart, are you the one who scooped those up? Yeah, it was just something to break up the monotony of wandering monsters and weather and things like that. Just something that adds a little bit more to your game without just going back to the tried and true same old procedural roll for wandering monster, encounter, reaction roll, maybe talk to it, maybe bribe it, maybe scare it off, maybe fight it, kill it, or maybe befriend it, turn it into a pet, turn it into a side hustle business, turn it into a trusted companion, things like that. I know pets in modern gaming are really popular, making strange, unusual creatures pets. I actually do like that idea because I think it would be more likely than not for humans and demi-humans to want to interact with these creatures other than to eat them and chop them up for parts to maybe make them part of their lives, trusted companion, guard weasels or singing hyenas or just something weird just to make your world that much more unique. But that's what I've got for you guys this morning. I will be back in about 45 minutes with Second Breakfast. Let me know if you've ever come up with some exotic creatures to liven up your game world and make it more uniquely your own. I will see you guys all later, and until then, happy trails.